Good day, ladies and gentlemen. We want to invite you to our webinar, brief introduction of the Post-congress Workshop with Mr. Björn Enken. The word to you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to have some time to introduce you to the workshop and the concept Diversity Icebreaker. That is the core of the workshop that we will arrange on Sunday morning between 10 and 1 in the morning. So Diversity Icebreaker is a concept that is based upon a psychological questionnaire. And the psychological questionnaire is a starting for a workshop that normally runs for about 60 to 75 minutes. That is what you call the classical Diversity Icebreaker seminar. This kind of concept with the questionnaire and the 1 hour seminar is a workshop that has been certified and validated by what we call psychological standards. It implies that the tool, the questionnaire, as a test assessment tool, is found reliable and valid for the way it's being used. But in the certification process, we have also included the seminar form. And that's why the whole kind of concept is today a workshop concept that lasts for 1 to 1.5 hours. There are some unique aspects around this kind of seminar. It can be run with a huge number of people at the same time. And very many people report learning points in the same way, whether there are 9 or 200 people in the room. And this implies that if you are working on the issues of diversity and how people are different when they're working together, you have a tool that in a very fast time will give participants an entrance to a language, a way of understanding that normally when psychologists are using assessments for individual differences, normally they spend lots of more time for getting people to understand. So it's a quick, reliable, and a huge volume concept that you do not normally see around, yeah. And Diversity Icebreaker also is unique in the way that it's distributed worldwide. We say that people who are trained as facilitators, they can either take part in the seminar and see how it works. They can look up on a video, they can read a manual of 30 pages. And we know that that will be enough for the trained facilitator to run this 1 hour session around it. Of course, there are lots of information about how to apply this kind of learning in very many ways following the seminar. And there are lots of knowledge and research around the whole kind of concept. But the critical element is to run the seminars. And then we see that many people use this kind of tool in very many directions around it. The model that is underlying the whole kind of differences between people, the diversity issue, is based upon 3 categories called red, blue, and green. Quite neutral concepts that we say they are neutral because we don't want to have lots of established words with lots of background and emotions when we start introducing new kind of language into the seminar and as a learning point for the individuals. And we will tell you more about later why we think it's important to start the whole kind of process with new kind of labels in comparisons to other kind of concepts around it. The seminar, what I call the classical seminar, which is the one that you in the workshop in a post-congress workshop will experience first, and then we will share information about how to use the tool afterwards. But the main classical component of the seminar consists of 4 elements. It's a process where you are filling in the questionnaire, you are distributed into groups, you are doing some work in the groups, and you present the group work, and we ask at the end what you can learn from this. When we work in organizations and use this as a systematic tool for change management, for example, then we also ask what kind of implications this has for tomorrow, for the organization, for planning processes. But when we run seminars where the individuals are recruited, we think that the learning point for the individual is the main core around it. So let me tell about how the classical format seminar will run, and that will constitute half of the workshop also in the post-congress workshop. So when you get into the room, I will say to people, this is a seminar about diversity and how we can manage diversity in organizations, in interaction between people around it. And we look upon a diversity concept here that is different from the classical descriptions of individual qualities like personality, cultural values, etc. We are focusing here on those elements that are interesting for people when they are working together, communicating together. Because we know something about that kind of interaction from psychology, that if people know themselves good, and if they know the others, and if they know how the others think of them, then it's more easy for people to take the steps that is necessary to approach the other, choosing words and strategies in communication around it. And Diversity Icebreaker is a learning process that gives you some kind of knowledge around these elements around it, about yourself, about the others, and what the others think of you. And since this kind of concept is a psychological concept, psychologists have always loved to put people into boxes, and we are experts in diagnosis. So we have created a questionnaire that makes it possible for diagnose your quality as a person interacting with other kind of people. So please fill in the questionnaire, and then you will find out who you are. We ask people to fill in a questionnaire on page 1. When they've done that, they rip off first page 1, and then they can count on second page the numbers of red, blue, and green. And then people ask, well, we don't know what is red, blue, and green. And we say, well, yes, that's right. So we have to find out what is red, blue, and green. And instead of giving them research-based answers, which is based upon analysis or lots of empirical work, we say that let's split the whole kind of seminar in 3 main groups. Very often we make even number in red, blue, and green groups. And then we ask people to write what the good things that I think about themselves. And on second and third page, what they think of the others. That kind of group task gives some kind of component of self-bragging. And also when they are writing about the others, they are reflecting and acting based upon the idea of the others as, well, they have also good qualities, but they also have some kind of bad qualities around it. So you might say that a blue person, which is very analytical, detailed, concrete, and that way very good contributor in hard work, from an outside point of view, he can look a bit square-minded too. So all small groups talking about themselves and others are reflecting and experience the process of what kind of words shall be used describing ourselves and others. Very often with component of self-bragging and yes and both about the others. And the whole seminar invites to such kind of experiences around it. When we present the learning, what the different kind of groups have been writing, and we present it to each other, people see that self-bragging is a natural process, as well as having yes and both understanding of the others. And in that kind of process, people laugh about their own way of wording, their own kind of experience. They laugh about the others' experiences, but they also laugh about how naturally it is to, when you are acting in that kind of group and in that kind of role, to speak out words about the other groups that you normally don't feel free to talk about. So you see more political incorrect comments coming out when people share in between the groups, but it's done jointly for all 3 groups. So in one way, people realize that this is a natural process of being labeled and put into categories of similar people and seeing the other groups as outsiders to themselves. And of course, when you ask people, what can you learn from this kind of exercise? These are those elements as people focusing upon. They see that we are different. That difference is okay if you can play each other with the strengths, and then you can find good teamwork. But I also realized that putting on categories, labels, and putting people into groups, it doesn't take more than 1, 2, 3 minutes before the whole kind of group dynamics emerge around it. And then we can reflect upon collectively, what does it imply that such kind of differences are there, that differences are easy to label, and that these kind of differences has effect in the interaction between people. So these are the 4 components that constitute the main components of the seminar. When we run it in organizations where, for example, they want to work with cross-cultural interaction between different departments, etc., then we ask, how can we bring that kind of learning into that kind of setting around it? There are some elements of understanding yourself and the others and communication that is very easy to emerge from this kind of seminar. But it's also possible to look upon this as an entrance to talking about what are the norms, what are the values, the models we have in mind when we are talking about diversity management. What kind of labels do we use? What kind of categories are naturally around in the organization? And in the Diversity Icebreaker seminar, there are no power differences normally between red, blue, and green, which we very often see in reality. So in one way, you can mirror very complementary, respectful, equally oriented experiences in the seminar. That is something you can compare with natural diversity issues and discuss what are the differences, what are the similarities, and that can increase the awareness of what's going on in reality and what could have been if everything was at its best around it. Yeah. The next illustrations are illustrations of that show some of the different kind of groups for how they've been producing results on the flip charts when they've been writing. The first one there is a very typically red paper illustrating people, harmony, warmth, and words that labels the red meaning around it there. This is an illustration of the blue, where you see much more concrete, practical things, a bit more precisions around it. You see there's some words down there saying that, well, we see the trees, and implicit, I think, that the green are those who look upon the forest around it, yeah. And some people say that when red people are walking in the forest, they don't care about the forest and the trees at all, they talk with each other. And that is an illustration of the 3 different ways of approaching life, you might say. This is a green illustration, which is more holistic oriented and comes with lots of connections between the different kind of things. And just by seeing the illustrations, not only the words, but the illustrations form, gives you some kind of indication of what are the differences between red, blue, and green. And when people see that in the room, they get some kind of instant validation of the whole kind of model just through the practice they are seeing it, yeah. This is an illustration for the 4th stage, where you see people have been writing in different groups on different flip charts, and the facilitator is walking around and let each kind of group present themselves and what they've been writing about the others. This kind of seminar at that stage is the place where the humor is unforgettable. And in that way, if you are looking upon the energy in the room, that is the peak point of the whole kind of seminar around it. Yeah. I've been showing you some kind of illustration of the flip chart for red, blue, and green, but we have also been doing some kind of empirical research and theoretically research around the whole kind of concept. Red, blue, and green emerged out of a research we did in the mid-90s for communication training. And in 2002 and 3, we gradually saw a process of combining this kind of questionnaire for mapping these kind of qualities together with the seminar, the way that it is being set up now. And the seminar is a place where people socially construct the meaning, while when we are letting people filling in a questionnaire, we act as if we are classical psychologists who are mapping individual qualities. And in that kind of research tradition, which is one that is illustrated on the left side here, you see some of the research and positive connections between different kind of colors from different kind of research tradition around it. We call it a very positivistic test psychological tradition because it's based upon the idea that you are measuring internal qualities inside people. And the question then is, do you do it in a reliable way? And is it valid, the words you are using? A normal way of acting in that kind of tradition is to make correlations with different kind of concepts. And we have been measuring correlations between red, blue, and green questionnaire with 10, 15 different kind of psychological concepts. The most interesting one for the way we are talking about here is the relationship to personality dimensions, values, and in this context we have been using Schwartz values, not Hofstede's or Trompenaar's or Klokkener-Strålbach, etc. And the part that is in the lower part here is the cognitive styles, which is referred to something about the information treatment by itself. So the red, blue, and green words there illustrates the positive connections with the different kind of colors. For those people who are very aware about Big Five personality model, you see that there are no connections between red, blue, and green and neurotic behavior and neuroticism. And that's good. It makes everything much more easy when you're working in organizations. You also see that there are no connections between red and cognitive style. And this is because we have been measuring cognitive styles with two different types. One is just a two-dimensional one, which basically reflects what people normally think about left and right brain. And there are zero correlation between red and these kind of functions. We are now gathering data on a second model of cognitive styles that has three different kind of components. And we hope that we can confirm that the red function of that kind of third dimension in cognitive style fits into our model. But we haven't gathered enough data to publish that kind of result yet. This is what is on the left side on this kind of presentation. On the right side, we are trying to theoretically describe what we think happens when people go into the different kind of groups and create some kind of ideas about what does red, blue, and green mean. We see that people are taking elements from the questionnaire and start the idea writing about themselves based upon questions in the questionnaire. But then they are adding on personal experiences and they talk and share this kind of discussion in between the participants and agree upon what to write there. So what we see is that what is written down on the flip chart is a combination of input from the questionnaire, which represent the real world, but also personal experience and social agreements. And if you look upon how language is being developed in social systems, we see that people talk and identify issues that reflect something that's important to talk about outside themselves, the real world. They talk about things that is important for them based upon their personal experiences. And they talk about things that make sense for other people to talk about. And that is a social context around it. And in that way, what's happening in small groups reflects what we call a natural process of language development in social systems around it, which is a totally different way of approaching this kind of work than measuring questionnaires with 200 people and making correlations with other kind of conceptual thing based upon this more psychological tradition around it. So you might say that on the left side you have psychology, on the right side you have elements of social anthropology, linguistic understanding coming there. And the seminar itself combines these different kind of traditions, different kind of paradigmatic traditions around it, but ends up in a situation to make people reflect upon what kind of language do we use when we are talking together. So in one way, the seminar is a language constructing process when we are setting up this whole kind of system. And when people leave the room, they have established the words of red, blue, and green as a shared model, shared concept that makes people feel safe approaching each other using this kind of word. Since all groups in this kind of process get a very positive feeling concerning the whole kind of seminar, people feel safe, psychologically safe, to talk and address people with red, blue, and green. Even given negative feedback works quite okay when you're using red, blue, and green, because there are elements of trust and acknowledgement of diversity and the need of diversity to play each other good, to play each other with the strengths that is implicit in the whole kind of model here. There are different ways of analyzing, you might say, research-based this kind of workshop. And what we have shown you here now is an illustration of red, blue, and green, how we understand that red, blue, and green is built up. We also have studied the effect of the seminar, and we see that it builds positivity, it builds trust, it builds openness and curiosity for learning. And in that way, we say often that the seminar itself creates a momentum where you relatively easy can move people in different kind of change-oriented processes, learning-oriented processes. But this is what you call an effect study based upon the 1 hour seminar around it, yeah. So how is this tool used? And cross-cultural area is only one of the area where this kind of tool has been applied. We assume that roughly 15-20% of the volume of the Diversity Icebreaker is being used in a cross-cultural setting, mainly in order to bring people together, create common ground, both concerning language, but also having positive experiences together, makes people curious and positive to working together around it. But it also introduces a language that is different from classical cross-cultural labeling, that gives an openness for another kind of shared language for communication that bypasses classical cross-cultural dimensions, for example. At the same time, the whole kind of process illustrates how categories are being established and can be discussed about in order to reflect upon diversity management generally around it. The other traditional area where this is being used is in the classical communication training, where people learn about themselves, others, and how to communicate. And if you look upon from an organizational level, teams and leadership is the next level. So, for example, we see that almost 90% of the consultants who are using this tool, they say that they use it also for team development around it. And then the whole model here is that diversity in teams is good if you can recognize the differences that are relevant for working together and get some kind of norms for how to have everybody included and find their most effective role in the social interaction around it. This is the classical team role model that first was spelled out in 1980 by Belbin in the general thinking around it. We also see that it's used very often in kickoffs, both for projects, startup processes, but but also in conferences with 100 to 200 people in the same room, because it doesn't take more than 60, 70 minutes before you create some kind of engagement and curiosity for social interaction between people. So if you want to have a conference where social contact is important, the kickoff element of the Diversity Icebreaker in the conference is very, very, very huge, and very often is being rated as the most popular element in the conference around it. At the end, it's mentioned conflict management here, and the conflict management component, the way we are using it here, is that is the momentum you are creating for openness, but also the language that you are introducing into the social systems. So you can map and talk about the issues from a reframed way with the new kind of categories. And sometimes this gives an hope, and a hope linked to red, blue, and green, which have some kind of norms of respect and complementarity into it. And that makes it more easy to go into next steps when things are stuck in a conflict management situation around here. So the tool has been used in very many organizations. We talk about roughly 900 engagements every year. Human Factors is a company with only 2 psychologists going on with 2 administrative staff. And I think that we basically run 2-3% of the total use of this kind of tool. The rest is being used by other people all over the world. It has been used in 70 different countries as far as we know. And there are more than 40,000 people who use or take part in seminar with more than 1,000 consultants around it. And just to illustrate some of the use of this kind of tool is the DNV, German Lloyd's merger, where they decided to use red, blue, and green as the categories for understanding communication needs and individual needs due to the uncertainty being created when a merger has been spelled out to all participants in the organization. So they use this kind of model and concept all over the world. And we talk about 126 countries, 420 offices, 2,000 managers who was delivering that kind of model the day the merger started around it. We have a relatively large number of academic institutions who are using it for training students for working in diverse teams. And probably one of the presentations in Dublin will be from ISEG, where they will talk about how they are training students to work in diverse teams as a way of building the capability for problem solving, not only relevant for learning among students, but also a capability that is relevant for ordinary work afterwards around it. University of Oslo, they are using this tool as in a 2-day seminars where students and teachers meet and talk about expectations for the student environment, student work, social interaction, professional interaction, etc. And they run 40 seminars every autumn to capture all students in the area of mathematics to make them involved into that. Skanska have been using the tool the last, roughly 12 years for team working, project work, kickoff with new kind of customers, etc. And seems to have integrated the whole language systems into many parts of the organization. Yeah. So what we will do in the post-congress workshop is we will start the whole kind of seminar by running the classical diversity icebreaker workshop, the way we have been describing it. And then we will inform about guidelines for the trainers, give you some kind of overview of how it's been used in different kind of direction, where to find information about more advanced use of the tool, and information about the research and development that has been done around this kind of concept. you can find quite a lot information about the concept on our homepage. And we have published 2 books with academic contributions from different researchers this last 10 years. And there are lots of practical information that can be downloaded from our homepage. We have meant to be relatively, we wanted the concept to be easy accessible. So we don't have a certification structure that is mandatory for people who are trainers. So if you can document that you are experienced standing in front of the people, you can buy the material and get access to the information that you need to run seminars around it. This relatively generously and relatively cheap accessibility to the whole kind of tool is probably also one of the reasons why it has been going around in the world so fast around here. But this is the overview that I've been giving you. If you want to start working on this kind of concept, I think to experience the classical workshop themselves is probably the most important. That is something that you will get possibility in the post-congress workshop. Yeah. So I hope that you are curious and would like to attend the seminar, and welcome you will be.
Thank you very much, Bjorn, for a very, very good presentation and very clear one, I must say. We want to invite you all to join us in Dublin in our congress from 24 to 27, but of course to join us in the pre-congress workshops 22 to 24 and the post-congress workshop on Sunday 28.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we can stop recording now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think it was a lot more clear this time than the previous time. We missed a little bit of introduction, but it still shows to me that it's recording.
So let me see if I can see.